Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my February wrap up for you guys. So, before we get into the book stuff, I just want to say I went to see the 1975 last night. I was on like the 4th row. My throat feels like it's coated with sandpaper right now, and I woke up and one of my eyes was all crusted shut because I think I hurt my eyeball at some point. So things get a little bit weird in here. If I start to croak towards the end of this video, then that is the reason why. But you know, the show must go on and I am still bringing you this wrap up because we all know that no matter how crazy life gets, the one thing that we can all count on is my upload schedule, apparently, because I have no chill. So the month of February went pretty well for me. I read 8 books in total. The beginning of the month was a lot stronger than the second half of the month. The last week or so I have been struggling with a reading slump. It didn't get too bad, but we'll call it what it is. I was in a reading slump because of the last 2 books that I will be reviewing for you in this video. But because of how well February was going at the beginning of the month, I did bring you guys a mid-month wrap up, and in that video I did review these 5 books, which were The Lord of the Fading Lands by C.L. Wilson, Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin, and Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. So I have already reviewed these 5 books. They will not be present in this video, although I did read them in February. And if you would like to know my thoughts on any of these, then I will link my mid-month wrap up here for you guys to check out. So that means that in this video I will just be reviewing 3 books for you guys. I read those 3 books across the space of a week. You know, February was still going well, but since I finished that final book, I have been struggling with picking up books. I've been picking up a book, reading 50 to 100 pages and putting it down. This is quite normal for me when I am in a reading slump. I will keep sampling books until I find one that holds my attention, which I have thankfully found now. And then I usually read that book in its entirety and then go back and pick up all the books that I sampled and get to the end of those. So I am currently reading 4 books on top of the 3 that I finished in the second half of February. So at the end of this video, I will just quickly run through those books that I'm currently reading so you guys know what to expect from me in the coming weeks, as none of those 4 books are on my March TBR. So for my reading statistics in the month of February, I read 3,047 pages, which breaks down to an average of 105 pages per day. I gave 1 2-star rating, 1 3-star rating, 4 4-star ratings, and 2 5-star ratings, which breaks down to an average of 3.9 per book. For the demographics, I read 2 children's books, 3 young adult, 1 new adult, and 2 adult. For the formats, we had 7 physical books and 1 e-arc. For the genres, I read 5 fantasy, 1 dystopian, 1 contemporary, and 1 romance. And lastly, for the places that I sourced these books from, 6 of them came from my own TBR that existed before the start of 2020. 1 book I have hauled in 2020, and 1 was an e-arc from NetGalley. Okay, so heading straight into those reviews. The first book that I have for you was my least favorite book of the month, actually, and sadly that was the arc that I received from NetGalley. So the book was The Raven and the Dove by Caitlin Davis. This is a young adult fantasy romance that is a retelling of Tristan and Isolde. So this story takes place in a world of floating islands. At some point in the history of the world, the islands were kind of on the Earth's surface, but the people who now live in these floating islands believe that because of their belief in the gods and because of praying to the gods, the islands were risen up into the sky so that these people could escape the magic wielders that oppress them. Each floating island has a kind of race, and these races all come from birds. So all of the people that are on these islands in the sky do have wings. Every island is a different type of bird, and the main ones that we follow in this book are the doves of the House of Peace and the ravens from the House of Whispers. Every so often on summer solstice in this world, all of the royal families from all of the islands gather, and they have something called the courting trials, where the 2 children who are over the age of 18 from each royal family will take place in a series of trials, both physical and mental, and the top ranking competitors at the end of these trials will get first pick of mate. So this story starts off with Liana, who is the princess of the House of Peace, and she has snuck out to the bridge outside of the palace to see the first of the houses arrive because she is quite nervous because one of the people who are arriving on this day is going to be the person that she is married to. Now while she's out there spying, 2 princes do arrive, and these 2 are the the Raven princes. We have Xander, who is the crown prince, and we have Rafe, who is the bastard son of the late king. In this scene, we come to realize that Xander has a disability. He is missing a hand, and because of this, he asks Rafe to step into his shoes and take his place in the trials so that they stand a better chance of ranking highly, as the House of Whispers has not been selected as a mate for a very long time, and this is leading people to believe that the House of Whispers is falling out of favor with the gods. So Rafe agrees to step into his brother's shoes and he starts to compete in the trials. As you can imagine, with this being a Tristan and Isolde retelling, Lyanna does start to fall for Rafe, only to discover at the end of the trials that he is not actually the crown prince and that Lyanna will actually be marrying his brother. So that is the setup for this story. We also have some other things going on in the background. Some of the characters have magic, which is not allowed because way back in the history, as I mentioned, these people were being ruled by magic wielders who were oppressing them. So anybody who is caught with magic is cast out. We also have a spy amongst the cast of main characters. One of them is spying on the main characters on behalf of a king who is back on the surface level of Earth. That character is kind of our main antagonist. Now, I gave this book 2 stars. I did not enjoy it all that much. I did really like the character of Rafe, I will say that. I think of all of the characters, he is the most well developed, or I would even go as far to say the only well developed character here. His history has given him a lot of guilt and he really does hate himself for a lot of reasons. So having that backstory definitely made his character seem more realistic and his motivations were definitely a lot more believable than any of the other characters in here. My main gripe with this book is that it was 500 pages long and I didn't find any aspect of it to be quite well developed. The magic was definitely underdeveloped, but I was kind of overlooking that because I went into this knowing it was a fantasy romance. So pretty much as long as the romance was strong, I wouldn't have minded too much if the fantasy was a little weaker. However, that was not the case. The majority of the romance in this book is a massive will they, won't they, and eventually, with it being a romance, something does kind of happen, but it is very late on in the story and it's about a page and a half and then it fades to black. So it was a lot of angst building up throughout this story, but I still felt like there was not enough interaction between the characters that these romantic feelings were with, because we do actually have a large cast of characters in this book. We are following the perspectives of Rafe, Lyanna, Xander and Cassandra, and as there were so many perspectives, I did also expect them to be a little bit more focused in their narrative. However, some of them were quite meandering and was just talking about things like the hopes and dreams of the characters, which you would think would build character development, but I just didn't feel like it was executed very well. As I mentioned, the main protagonist is this earthen king. However, he was not really present for most of the story until the big climax at the finish, so I didn't really feel like he was much of a presence. He didn't feel very threatening. I wasn't worried about him arriving or anything like that. I kind of just wondered what was going on with him, and even after having finished this book, I still don't really understand what the end game for that character was and all the characters that he's allied with. So overall, I would say that this one was pretty disappointing. I didn't think that it did any aspects particularly well. The whole thing did kind of feel like a setup to a story, so it was like a really long prologue, which leaves me intrigued about the sequel to this book, which will be out in summer this year, I believe. So there is a chance that I will pick that up because I am kind of intrigued and I especially want to know what is going to be going on with Rafe going forward. But I did give this book 2 stars, so I'm not sure at the moment whether I will be continuing with this one. So the last 2 books I read in the second half of February were actually both by the same author, and the first one was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, I really love Colleen Hoover's writing, which is something that you guys may not know, because before this one, the last time I read a Colleen Hoover book was in 2018. I think it was summer 2018, and back then I read 4 pretty much back to back, and I kind of did the same thing now, and I read 2 Colleen Hoover books back to back, and I also have a third on my March Bookopoly TBR, and I think I might read some more. The reason that you guys don't hear me talk about Colleen Hoover too much is because I try to avoid reading her books, because when I do, I get sucked in and they're really addictive and I just can't stop reading them. This book is pretty much the reason why I'm currently in a reading slump. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Colleen Hoover, she writes contemporary stories or romance stories that deal with difficult topics. When I read fantasy books, I do like them to be as realistic and logical as possible. However, when I read contemporary or romance, I do like them to be a little bit over the top, a little bit less believable, always a little bit angsty, nasty, sometimes a little bit problematic, and always dealing with stuff that's going to hurt me, pretty much. So this one in particular follows a main character called Lily Bloom, and we start this novel where Lily's father has just died. Lily has gone to the roof of one of the tallest buildings in Boston to blow off some steam, and while she's up there just thinking things through, dealing with her grief a little bit, a very attractive man called Ryle does appear on this rooftop. He also appears to have had a bad day, and those two get talking and start to play a game of truths. During this game of truths, Ryle says to Lily that he would very much like to fuck her, and she is considering it when he gets a very urgent call from the hospital where he is currently completing a residency to become a neurosurgeon, that they need help with a very important surgery, and he is the only one currently available to go and help them. So Ryle goes to deal with that, and the moment is ruined. However, 6 months after this first meeting, Ryle and Lily do meet again when Lily has just opened a florist, and unbeknownst to her, she has hired his sister. So this one is a new adult romance, and for the majority of this book, we do follow Lily and Ryle and what is going on with them. Loved that dynamic for the most part of this book. I really liked what was going on here. There is sex in here. It's not incredibly explicit, but it is there, and I really liked their relationship dynamic, because going into this novel, Ryle doesn't want a relationship. He is very ambitious, he's very driven, he takes his job very seriously, and relationships have never been something that he is interested in. On the other hand, Lily is a hopeless romantic, and she believes that there is a soulmate out there for everyone. So it was really interesting seeing these two personalities come together and how that dynamic would work. Now from that, this seems like kind of a straight romance. However, we do have an extra dynamic in here, because when Lily was a teenager, she lost her virginity to a boy called Atlas, who was homeless at the time and staying in an abandoned house at the back of her parents' property. Now, Atlas was obviously going through some tough times with him being homeless, but so was Lily, because she actually grew up in a household of domestic abuse. Her father would regularly physically abuse her mother, and so Atlas and Lily were there for each other during really tough times in their lives. They were never officially together because of their difficult circumstances. However, they did have a thing that was abruptly cut short when Atlas's circumstances changed and he left to live with a family member. So Atlas and Lily do have some unresolved stuff going on. They haven't spoken in years. They both assumed that the other has forgotten their existence. However, everything is brought to a head shortly after Lily begins to date Ryle, who takes her to a fancy restaurant where Lily sees Atlas for the first time in nearly 10 years. So as you can tell from this, trigger warnings for domestic violence in here. The depictions of Lily growing up are detailed in here. Some of the worst experiences that she ever had living with her parents are in this book. If you are sensitive to domestic violence in any way, just do not read this book, because it really goes into that topic and it really puts you in a unique perspective in this book. Now on that topic, that is all I kind of want to say about the aspect, because there are things that come into play in this book around 200 pages into it that I did not expect, and I should have expected them based on how the story starts and the themes in here, but I did not expect it. It took me by surprise, and this book broke my heart. There is so much nuance in this story. Colleen Hoover made me feel all of the things. I loved both of the love interests, and as situations continue to get more complex throughout the book, decisions became harder, and I liked how Colleen Hoover put me in Lily's shoes. She put me in Lily's shoes. She made me fall in love with these two characters, and then there is betrayal and my heart broke. There is one line in this book. There is one line in this book that just, oh god, even rereading it, I reread it last night because somebody in my comments of my vlog asked what it was. It just, oh god, it just squeezes my heart. This book punched me emotionally. So many points in this book just really tore me apart. This is definitely a hard-hitting one. This is definitely an emotional one. I'm not a book crier, so I didn't cry, but if you are, there is a strong chance that this book will make you cry. It is extremely emotional. It deals with some difficult topics. It's very dramatic and angsty, because you guys know that I like those things. Through the beginning, it's very compelling. It's very romantic. You'll be swooning all over the show. But yeah, I would highly recommend this one. If you haven't read Colleen Hoover and you want to, I would definitely recommend going with this one. But with all of Colleen Hoover's books, do look up the trigger warnings if you are sensitive, as every one of her books does contain some sort of trigger. I'm not triggered by anything really, so I never really look into those things. And I am actually, for this book and the next book, going to put the trigger warnings right at the bottom of my description box so that you can check them out if you want to, because some of the trigger warnings in these two books are a little bit spoilery to talk about. So after it ends with us, I was on a a total Colleen Hoover kick, so I did pick up Without Merit. I didn't know what this one was about going into it. I just wanted more Colleen Hoover, but unlike It Ends With Us, which is a new adult romance, this one is a young adult contemporary which follows a girl called Merit. Now, when we start the story, Merit has just dropped out of school. She's just decided that she doesn't want to go anymore. There's no real reason why she drops out. She is in an antique store about to buy a trophy because one of her hobbies is collecting trophies that she hasn't earned. She just likes to have them, when she notices a boy staring at her. Now, the boy staring at her is called Sagan, and she thinks it's a little bit weird, but she does find him attractive, so she kind of rolls with it. Sagan follows her out of the store, says something really strange to her, and kisses her. And just at that moment, his phone starts ringing, and it is actually Merit's twin sister on the phone, and Sagan was kissing Merit because he thought that she was Honor. So from that moment, Merit kind of assumes that Sagan is Honor's boyfriend, and because of that, he is off limits quite naturally. Now, Merit has a kind of unique living situation. She lives with her entire family, but they are very dysfunctional. Her father and mother are separated, but her mother lives in the basement, while her father is remarried to the woman who used to be her mother's nurse. She also has her twin sister. There's a lot of bitterness there because they are identical, but Merit thinks that Honor is better at everything than Merit is. She's more popular, she's prettier, she's more personable, and things like that. They also have their older brother that Merit is holding a grudge against, but going into this, nobody knows why. And then she also has a baby half brother called Moby, who is the only member of her family that she can stand. So the main themes in this book are depression. Now, the way that depression is dealt with in this book, or the way that it's introduced into the story, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a spoiler, but the realization that depression plays a part into the story does come quite late on in the novel. However, from my experience reading this, I would say that it is quite obvious, not too far into this book, that Merit does seem to be dealing with some emotional issues that she is not confronting. She is very angry, she's very isolated, she runs on assumptions about everybody. As a narrator, she is unreliable. She will tell you all of these things about her family, but you only have her word for it because she's not actually communicating with her family. She's locking herself in her room all the time. She's just being angsty, she's argumentative, she causes arguments with the entire family when she could just let it go and have like a peaceful moment. So depression is definitely the main theme of this book. There is another trigger in here as well, which, like I said, bottom of my description box if you do want to check that out. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. I did enjoy it, not as much as It Ends With Us. I kind of wanted a romance from this going into it. When I realized it wasn't, that was absolutely fine, and I still really loved it. It's just I have noticed from personal experience with Colleen Hoover books that I have read in the past that I definitely prefer her new adult romance stories as opposed to her young adult contemporaries. There is a romance storyline in this, and I liked it. It was pretty good, but this story is definitely more about Merit and her working through these feelings, realizing what's wrong with her, confronting all of the issues that have been bothering her, and working towards a healthier future. I definitely think that this novel was valuable for that. I liked the way that it played out. I liked spending time with Merit's wacky family, especially towards the end as things were easing up a little bit, I guess. But this is, once again, a very good book that does deal with some difficult topics, and I very much appreciated it. As well as all of the themes I've just mentioned in here, we do very briefly touch upon the Syrian refugee crisis, which I thought was a nice addition to this book, kind of to give a face to some of the people who have been affected by the Syrian refugee crisis. We always have this talk in the news and with politics on how issues don't seem like they affect us if we just think of people as nameless, faceless nobodies that aren't actually real humans. So to put a character in here that was directly affected by something like that, I think was very well done, and I liked that aspect of it as well. So pretty much I would recommend this. Not my favorite Colleen Hoover, but definitely a good read, and I enjoyed it. So those are my reviews for the final 3 books that I read in February, but as I mentioned, I am currently reading 4 books, so I'm just going to run through them so that you guys know where we're at with those. So the one that I'm currently enjoying the most, the one that's pulling me out of my slump, is Crooky Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I'm buddy reading this with Jade from JD Ray Reads. This is about a group of criminals led by Becca who have been hired to perform a heist on this impenetrable prison to break out the inventor of a very dangerous drug. I'm currently on page 356 of this. It has just over 500 pages, I think, so I expect that I will be done with this in the next couple of days. Very much enjoying this, more than I enjoyed Six of Crows. Love the character dynamics in here, and the plot is currently taking me by surprise. Actually, I'm not sure where this one's going to end. I also made it to page 136 in Spellslinger by Sebastian D. Castell. This is once again a young adult fantasy that follows a mage who has to perform a series of trials to earn his name as a mage, I guess. However, However, just as the trials are about to begin, he realizes that he has no magic, and so he plans to con his way through this competition. This book is pretty fast paced. Sebastian de Castell has a very particular writing style that at the moment I'm not sure how I feel about, but this one may be the one that I pick up directly after Crooky Kingdom to finish off, because it is a fast paced one and some of the characters are quite interesting and I want to see where that's going. I am also just under 100 pages through Aurora Rising by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This one is a campy young adult space opera that follows a boy called Tyler who is about to finish at the top of his class in flight school. However, he is late to the graduation ceremony, which means that instead of being able to pick from the best of the class for his crew, he's left with the bottom of the barrel. So I'm not far enough into this to really know where the plot's going, but I do enjoy it so far. It's one of those where I feel like the characters are going to be the strong points in this story, but I haven't got far enough yet to really know about or care about any of them. And then the last book that I started and did not finish was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I'm 47 pages into this. This is my 4th reread of this book. I started buddy rereading this, or buddy reading, but I'm rereading it with Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin and Ashley from Frolic Through Fiction. They have both finished it. I didn't because I read other things. Still very much want to reread this series, and my March TBR is quite small, so I think I'll be able to manage it next month. If you guys don't know, this is a young adult, should be new adult fantasy romance series that is both a retelling of Beauty and the Beast and also Tamlin, that follows a human girl, Feyre Archeron, who kills a wolf that actually turns out to be a fairy, and because of this she is taken to the fairyland of Prithian to live her life there as payment for the fairy life that she took. So that is it for my February wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have read any of the books that I reviewed today and what you thought of them. Please also don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.